Face masks, controversial subject that should not be controversial. Let's talk some about face masks and their importance. Back in April 2020, as China had gained control, South Korea had gained control, but the rest of the world was starting to take off in infections. The US, even though a few weeks later than our European friends, started to take off in infections, and for reasons unknown to so many of us, refused to put out the warning and the importance of wearing face masks. The Director General of the Chinese CDC, Dr. Gao, an Oxford and Harvard educated scientist, told us face masks are important. Dr. Joseph Allen of Harvard School of Public Health told us about the same time. Face masks are important. If you're going to get control of this, you need face masks. Several months later, our own head of the CDC, Dr. Redfield, stated face masks are more important than vaccines. How could that be? Vaccines are the goal. It's what we're searching for. It's what we're waiting on. There shouldn't have been any waiting on face masks, and we could have saved ourselves a lot of hurt, a lot of destruction by employing them much earlier instead of the confusion and controversy that ensued. So there is some confusion about face masks. There's the cloth masks that we make, and there's the ones you can buy of varying types. The gold standard, the N95, isn't readily available to us, but lots of good ones are. We need the N95 on the front lines for our hospital workers, for our essential workers, but we can still get ones that are highly effective. This chart from 3M shows that even though these other masks do not carry the certification tests that an N95 needs to go through, there's several choices like the KN95 that I like to use that is at the same level of performance, about 94, 95% efficiency in filtering out small particulates. And this is at a breathing rate of about 80 to 90 liters per minute, about 10 times normal breathing rate, the breathing rate that would go with very vigorous physical activity. Here's a plot from the University of Wisconsin in a publication they put out in December. Excellent paper, very, very valuable data. But among other things, they looked at face masks that were placed on dummies that then had atomized droplets similar to the type that come out of us from regular respiration. And they showed the efficiency of different face masks. And among the other things that they showed was that even masks like a cloth mask that might not be that effective, the real important part is the fit. By having a frame or a mask that more closely fits so that your breathing has to go through the material, you significantly improve its filtration efficiency. And when you get to a surgical mask, similar to like the KN95 and others, that you do then start to achieve with a good fit a 90-95% filtration efficiency. Now, that doesn't answer the question of, well, does it really get rid of a virus that's hitching a ride along on an aerosol or a droplet that's coming out of your breathing, coming out of your sneezing and coughing? And here's a paper from Dr. Milton and colleagues, and the answer is absolutely yes. It catches and significantly reduces the emission and the inhalation of viral laden particles. This study looked at cold viruses along with influenza and COVID type viruses. And I'm not showing the cold viruses, but influenza and COVID, the coronaviruses, are, while they're very different viruses, they're quite similar in their transmission. And these plots are very interesting. You can see On the one side, they take a swab from somebody's nasal cavity and throat, and the amount of viral particles of virus that they get from these swabbings is in the range of like a billion. Just a simple rubbing of a swab in your nasal cavity or on your throat. Hundreds of millions to billions of viral particles are just sitting in that small area. Now, when you sneeze or cough, the fluid that's lining your trachea and your bronchial tubes, the fluid is sheared off by the fast movement of air, and you tend to get the larger droplets, 5 microns and greater. And what's a micron? Well, a human hair is about 100 microns. So a 5 micron droplet, while considered pretty big as a droplet, is still pretty tiny, 1/20th of the diameter of a hair, something that is difficult to see, at least unaided. And then when you look at smaller, what are called aerosols, but typically droplets that are less than 5 microns, even less than 1 micron, a large number of them in the range of about zero point 0.3 to zero point 0.5 microns. And these are the droplets that are coming from deep within your lower respiratory system. Not everybody produces these, but for those who do, they tend to produce quite a bit of them. And there's a lot of virus on these very fine droplets, and it's important that a mask can catch these. And these two plots between a masked and an unmasked person with both coronaviruses and influenza viruses shows that definitely with a surgical mask, which again, something like a KN95 mask is equivalent in this 90-95% filtration efficiency, it removes the viral particles, whether they're hitching a ride with larger droplets or smaller droplets. And you can see that over a 30-minute period where they would have infectious test subjects breathing into a droplet capturing device, that where these people were emitting somewhere in the range of, say, a few thousand um, of these droplets over a 30-minute period, that masks are effective. They catch the droplets, they reduce your chance of getting infected. But let's see what that means. An infectious dose is called a quanta, and it's not a particular number of viruses. It's really an amount of virus that's considered to be an infectious dose. And one infectious dose, one quanta inhaled by a susceptible person, means that you're 63% likely to get sick. If you inhale 2 quanta, you're more than that. You inhale 3 quanta, you're getting in the 90-95% range certainty that you're going to get sick. And the fewer quanta you inhale, the less chance of getting sick. Now, let's say somebody puts on a mask who's infectious, and then you don't have a mask, or the opposite. The infectious person doesn't have a mask, but you have a mask, and that the mask is 90% effective. In either of those cases, the infectious person wearing a mask, now that 1 quanta that they may be shedding, that they may be exhaling, gets reduced to a tenth of a quanta on the other side of the mask. So when you inhale that, you're getting a tenth of what you would have received without the mask. Likewise, if the infectious person doesn't have a mask, but you're wearing a mask that's 90% effective, while the air inside that room may be filled with quanta of infectious doses, you're only breathing in a tenth of that level of concentration. The mask is protecting you. And the probability of getting infected drops significantly. Now, when both of you wear a mask, and if it's a good fitting 90% plus effective mask, now the quantas coming out of the infectious person get dropped down to a tenth, And then that tenth of a quanta that's floating around in the air gets reduced again, so that only 1% of the quanta coming out of the infectious person is potentially making it into your lungs and infecting you. And this means a significant drop down to just simply 1, 2, 3% probability you're going to get sick. Is that better than a vaccine? Yes, it is. A 95% efficient efficacy of a vaccine is very, very good. But an infectious person wearing a good mask and a susceptible person wearing a good mask is even better. We want to get to where we don't have to wear masks. They're annoying. But for the time being, it's important to wear masks. And who knows, there's new business opportunities, not only making masks, but who would have thought of mask breath and the opportunities to create another business?